So if you're learning Chinese, there's this one question that probably keeps you up at night. It's a question you've almost definitely typed into a search engine, just hoping for a straight, simple answer. In this explainer, we're going to try and find it.
Yep, this is it. The big one. It seems so simple, right? You just want a number, a target you can shoot for. But the second you start looking for an answer, you hit a pretty big wall.
The thing is, the answers you find are, well, they're all over the place. On one hand, you'll hear this super optimistic claim that just 500 characters will unlock 75% of all written Chinese. Sounds great. But then other sources come in and say, whoa, not so fast. To be actually literate, you need thousands, like 2,000, 2,500, maybe even 3,000 or more. So what's the deal? Who's right here?
All right, to get to the bottom of this, we're going to treat it like a mystery. We're going to investigate these numbers and figure out what they actually mean for someone like you, who's in the trenches trying to learn this language.
And I think the best way to do that is to actually walk in a learner's shoes. We're going to follow the journey from the very first character all the way to fluency, and we'll look at the key milestones to see what you can really do at each stage.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. And I'll be honest with you, the beginning is tough. It is what we are calling the early grind.
Getting your first 100 characters, man, that's a huge achievement. But the process is slow. It's tedious. Each character feels like this totally unique symbol you have to force into your brain. Then you hit 500, and a lot of websites make a huge deal about this number. But honestly, it's mostly just a nice-sounding number. The reality is, with 500 characters, you're not reading much beyond really simple kids' books or stuff made just for learners.
But, and this is a really big but, if you can just push through that initial grind, something amazing starts to happen. You reach a turning point where the whole process of learning just changes. And that turning point, it happens right around this number. For so many learners, 750 characters is where the entire game changes. It's kind of a magic number.
So why is 750 so important? Well, it's because around this point, your brain starts to see the matrix. You realize characters aren't just random squiggles, they're built from smaller parts. One component might give you a clue about the meaning, and another might hint at the sound. Learning stops being about pure brute force memorization and starts becoming about pattern recognition.
And this is so crucial. If you're a beginner and you feel like you're struggling, just aim for that 750 mark. Because if you can just get there, I promise you, you've made it through the absolute toughest part of the journey. From here on out, it actually gets easier.
So how does it scale up from there? Well, at 1,000 characters, you can start having simple text chats. At 1,500, you're reading easy kids' books, about a first grade level. Hit 2,000, and now you're in the big leagues. You can comfortably read most web pages and news articles, probably with a dictionary by your side. And at 2,500 characters, you can pass the HSK-6, which is the highest proficiency test, and you can even start getting into young adult novels.
Okay, so that seems like a pretty clear roadmap, right? Get to 2,500 characters, and you're all set. But here comes the plot twist. It turns out we might have been asking the wrong question this whole time.
Yeah, there's a huge, fundamental problem with everything we've just discussed. All those milestones, all those reading levels, they're based on an assumption about the Chinese language that simply isn't true.
Here it is. This is the heart of the issue. In Chinese, a character is not always a word. The language is built on combining characters to create new words. So knowing a single character doesn't mean you'll understand the word it helps create.
Let me show you a perfect example. Pretty much every beginner learns the character dai, which means big. Easy enough. But if you see it combined with this other character, it forms the word daifu. Now you can't just guess big man. The word is daifu, and it means doctor. Knowing the character big didn't give you the word doctor.
This changes everything. I mean, if knowing thousands of individual characters doesn't actually mean you can read the words they form, then is counting characters really the best way to measure your progress? Is it even the right question to be asking in the first place?
So, if counting characters isn't the whole story, what should we be focusing on instead? Let's totally reframe our goal to what actually matters for, communication.
The real goal isn't just to collect characters like Pokemon cards, it's to build your vocabulary of words. Because words are what you actually use to communicate, to understand an article, to have a conversation.
Think about it like this. The relationship between characters and words changes over time. At the very beginning, yeah, it's pretty much one-to-one. One new character is one new word. But then you hit this amazing acceleration phase. You start learning words made up of characters you already know, so your vocabulary grows way faster than your character count.
This hits its peak when you're using the most common characters because they form thousands of different words. Eventually, this all plateaus when you're left learning really rare characters that don't show up in many new words. And here's the really good news. When you start thinking in terms of words, Chinese suddenly feels a lot less alien and a lot more like any other language. The number of words you need to communicate is roughly the same across the board. You need a few thousand words for a basic conversation and somewhere around 10,000 to be considered fluent. The goalposts are suddenly much, much clearer.
So, what are the big takeaways here? First, if you're in that early grind, aim for 750 characters just to get over that initial hump. After that, shift your focus. Your primary goal should be to grow your vocabulary of words. Stop getting hung up on just counting characters and start focusing on what you actually need to communicate.
So this journey gives us a much better framework for learning, one that's based on a real learner's actual experience. But it does leave one final kind of tantalizing question out there. What if we could apply a really scientific, data-driven method to this? Could we finally settle that debate once and for all about whether 500 characters really gets you 75% of the language? Definitely something to think about.